back to my channel. I'm Neha Parashar, working in a healthcare company and based in Germany. Drug development is a long process and it takes many years for a drug to reach from discovery to regulatory approval and then to its launch, right? But the patients with chronic disease need faster access to these medicines. For example, situations like COVID-19. We got the vaccine much faster in market compared to any normal situation. Regulatory agencies have some specific pathway to speed up the development and approval of these drugs in such kind of emergency situation. So we'll see that in today's video. In today's video, we'll talk about such kind of three concepts which are followed during such emergency situations, and they are expanded access, emergency use authorization, which is also called as EUA, and the third one is off-label. What are these and how they are different from each other? Let's see that. Out of these three concepts, emergency use authorization is the one which was used for COVID-19 vaccine approval. What is this? We'll see that meanwhile. But first, let's see each of these concepts one by one. First, let's start with expanded access. To understand, let's break this term as it says expanded access. That means expanding the access of any drug which is still under investigation or which is still under clinical trial. So what happens? There can be situations like when the patient is dealing with a serious or immediate life-threatening disease or conditions, and there is no cure or treatment available for this disease. The patient is not in a condition to take participation in ongoing clinical trials. Now, what to do in such kind of conditions? Patient need a medicine, right? And how to give the medicines to that patient. In such situations, health authorities can allow the use of such drug to a patient, which these drugs are still under clinical trials and not yet approved. But because there is no comparable or satisfactory alternative drug available for the treatment, these drugs can be used, and health authorities allow the use of such drug, which is called as the expanded access. This expanded access is sometimes called as compassionate use. This expanded access can be requested either for a single patient or for a group of patients. Because there are the serious life-threatening conditions, FDA provides the authorizations very quickly in couple of days. Even in cases of emergencies, FDA provides the authorization within just hours just by telephone. How the applications or requests are made by the physician or companies for such expanded access authorization, I'll cover that in a separate video. But the purpose of today's video is just to explain you the concept behind it. There are two criteria in which FDA provides the expanded access of the drug. First, benefit of this drug must justify the potential risk. Second, the use of this investigational drug must not interfere with the ongoing product's development. So these are the two conditions. And of course, the manufacturer of that drug must be willing to provide the drug. FDA cannot force the manufacturer to provide the drug. So if the manufacturer is willing to provide the drug, then only this concept will work, right? Recently, during COVID-19, FDA indicated that there is a possibility of expanded access use of COVID-19 convalescent plasma. This is an antibody-rich product made from blood donated by people who have recovered from the virus. This may help COVID-19 patients. So this was something already indicated by FDA as part of the expanded access during COVID-19 treatment. During expanded access, because the drug is still under investigation, the current information about the drug or therapy is limited. Therefore, it's important that this therapy or drug is evaluated in the context of an ongoing clinical trial. Then comes the next pathway, which is called emergency use authorization, which I mentioned that this was used for COVID-19 vaccine approval. As the name indicate emergency use, that means this kind of authorization provided by FDA in case of public emergency. For example, recently COVID-19 was one of such emergency situations. There was an emergency need of vaccine in COVID-19 as there was no sufficient approved options available. We needed the vaccine right away, right now, and not some years later. Companies come forward and they submit the emergency use authorization application in such kind of situation. If FDA follows the typical approval pathway for approving the vaccines, then it will take several years, as in normal conditions companies have to follow typical pathway starting from phase 1 to phase 3 to completely evaluate the safety, efficacy and immunogenicity of the vaccines, involving the studies on larger population. So in such public emergency situations like pandemic, we don't have sufficient time to do all that. We have to fast track the process. So FDA provides the emergency use authorization in such situations. In this case, what happens that we don't go through the entire process to get approval. We get the approval even before finishing clinical trial, phase 3 clinical trial, or we get the waiver on trials, and we continue to test the long-term safety afterwards going forward. Emergency use authorization process is different from full approval process because FDA cannot wait for all the evidence to be available before approving the drug. Instead, FDA evaluate the options very quickly and approve the drug based on the current available evidence and benefit risk evaluation. So if we talk about the vaccine which got approval very quickly during this COVID pandemic situation, for example, Pfizer or Moderna, what they did, they had to put together all the data available from phase 1, phase 2 or whatever they had from phase 3 clinical trial. They had to do 2 months of follow-up information on data collected from patients they have vaccinated to make sure that giving this authorization would be a right decision for health authority. So now comes the last concept for today, which is off-label use. This is also called as unapproved uses of approved drugs. Let's see what is that. As the name indicate, off-label means using the drug for any indication or disease which is not mentioned on the label. FDA approves medication for specific use. If a drug is used for any other use other than the approved use, this is called the off-label use. Doctors can prescribe or administer the drug in clinical practices for an unapproved use not described in the approved labeling. That means that they can do the off-label use based on their medical judgment, recognizing that FDA has not assessed the safety or effectiveness of such use. While some drugs can have solid evidence, scientific evidence to support the off-label use, and in some cases we may not have that. So off-label prescribing is not restricted by law, and often this is beneficial. A doctor can legally prescribe drugs for off-label purposes. It doesn't mean that pharmaceutical companies can advertise or promote the drug for their off-label use. No. So this is against the law for pharmaceutical companies to advertise or promote their drug for off-label use. Sometimes you might not be even aware, but your doctor would have prescribed you the medicine for their off-label use or an approved use. Now I hope the concept of expanded access, emergency use authorization and off-label use is clear to you. In case you would like to understand some new concept, some particular concept, just let me know in the comment section. In my next upcoming videos, I'll talk about some new concept. Till then, let's stay tuned.